My top rated book on Amazon is the Mental Handbook. You want the physical book? This one right here for free. Click the link below and let's get to work on your game.
DreAllDay.com.
What's going on, everybody? Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. This week's motivation is there is no one to call on. I'm going to tell y'all, I think many of you may know my story. If you read my first book, Buy a Game, which you can get for free at the link right down there below, or just go to my website, DreAllDay.com. It's right there on the homepage. When I was 16, I tried out for the basketball team in high school as a junior. Didn't make the basketball team, and for a day, maybe for an hour, maybe for a week, I thought maybe basketball wasn't going to be the thing. Maybe it can be something else. Maybe there's something else that I can do that I can dedicate my life to, because I figured that I could be a basketball player. Even though there was nothing around me that was proof that that was going to happen, but I figured it would work. All I had to do was make the basketball team here, then do these things, and this. But then when I didn't make that team, it was like the whole plan was falling apart. And at that point, you got to understand, this is 1998. So I didn't have anybody on the internet that I could go look up. There wasn't a YouTube video I could watch to get motivated. There wasn't a coach that I could call on. I didn't have a coach. I wasn't on a basketball team. Who's the coach? There wasn't a brother that played basketball that I could ask him for advice. I don't have any brothers. There wasn't a parent or a sibling that played basketball that I could ask about, because nobody in my family was a basketball player. There was nowhere, literally nowhere, for me to turn to get help. And at that point, when I had no one to call on, that's when I got introduced to myself. And this is what this whole week's motivation is about. When I got introduced to myself, I had to look myself in the mirror. I had to have a conversation with myself and say, okay, what am I going to do at this point? There's no one I can talk to. There's no motivational video that I can repeat over and over in my head or download to my phone. We didn't even have phones then. We had house phones, not cell phones. There wasn't anything that I could call on outside of myself. So at that moment, when nothing was going my way, I got introduced to myself. What am I really? Am I going to be the person who quits, who says, well, the coach didn't put me on the team, the coach was hating on me, nobody wanted to pass me the ball, I didn't get put in my right position, because at tryouts I was guarding a guy who was pretty much a center. I don't think I was a center by the way we all understand the positions, but guess what? That's who I had to match up with. That was a player who was kicking my ass. I couldn't use that as an excuse. What am I going to do? Go back to the coach and say, well, coach, if you let me guard a point guard, I'll play better. Listen, that's not going to happen. I got introduced to myself. I got my ass kicked at tryouts. I didn't play well. I didn't make the basketball team for the third year in a row. There's absolutely nothing in my orbit right now that says I'm going to be successful as a basketball player. What am I going to do? I got introduced to myself by that point, and you can read my book, Buy a Game, and look at the rest of my story if you just now knowing who I am, and you can find out that the rest is history, as they say. But this is not about me. This week's motivation is about you. Because of the world that we live in today, you have people like myself online. You got 1,000 other people who you might be considered your inspirations or virtual mentors or motivators or whatever you want to call them, or your idols, your role models, people you look up to online and offline. There are so many options for you nowadays. And this is not just for young people, teenagers, or athletes. You could be 40 years old watching this, and I'm talking to you too, and never have picked up a basketball in your life. There's so many different options for you to go look at when things are not going your way these days, that a lot of people go through their entire lives never getting introduced to themselves. So even though I felt like shit when that happened in high school when I didn't make the basketball team, I didn't have anybody to call on. I had no choice but to be introduced to myself. And I'm glad it happened that way, because me getting introduced to myself back then led me to doing everything I've done from then up until now that puts me in a position to share this information with you to this day, on this very day. Because if I hadn't gotten introduced to myself, if I had an internet guy to go to, or somebody I could email, or some Instagram post that I could bury my sorrows in, then hey, who knows if I'd be here right now? Probably not. Now, does that mean that you can't be successful because you got the internet and people like me or whoever else you watch, or books you can read, or stuff you can download for free? No, that doesn't mean you can't be successful, but the thing is, you got to get introduced to yourself. You need to find out who exactly you are as a person. And what that means is, when you face a setback, when you face a challenge, when you face a time that a decision needs to be made or something's not going the way you want it to, it might not always be your best bet to go call on that guy on the internet, or go read that book again, or we had books back then, or go read that book again, or go sign up for some free webinar again. Even though I offer all those things, I would love for you to sign up for the stuff that I got and buy the programs that I have. But at some point in life, you need to get introduced to yourself. You need to figure out who exactly you are. You need to be facing a setback. You need to look yourself in the mirror and say, what am I going to do? Not what is somebody going to do to hype me up. Not who can I go look to get inspired. Not what book can I read to go motivate me. What am I going to do? Because when there's no one to call on, you get introduced to yourself, and you're going to find out real quick if you're the person who's going to figure out a way to keep going and gather yourself, steer back and keep going, or you're going to be the person who quits and has 1,000 excuses when you twice the age you are now and you're telling everybody what you could have been, what you could have did, or how somebody didn't help you out, how it just didn't go your way. You're going to figure out which one you're going to be. And when you get introduced to yourself, you're going to find that out real quick. The problem is, as I said, some of you haven't been introduced to yourselves yet because you got so many different options. Sometimes you need to cut those options off and give yourself one. Look in the mirror and figure out, what are you going to do? Because it ain't nobody to call. Work on your game. DreAllDay.com. What could you not do with more confidence? Less attention to the negativity of other people, more focus on your goals than nothing else, and not letting unfortunate circumstances slow you down. Would all of those help you out? Well, go to DreAllDay.com/bulletproof. Check out my new 8-week course called Bulletproof Mindset. Get started, and I'll see you over there. Work on your game. If you're on Snapchat, hit me on the Snap. My Snap name is @Dre Baldwin. You already know how that works. And I got a podcast, if you didn't know. It is called Work on Your Game. It is an everyday podcast where I talk about getting yourself into the right mindset, that bulletproof mindset. Getting yourself seen, heard, known. Getting the exposure you want and making things happen in your life instead of waiting for things to happen to or for you. Subscribe to that podcast. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Make sure you check it every single day. Make sure you're subscribed so you catch the heat. Work on your game.
Dre Ball, Dre Ball, Dre Ball. I feel like Dre Ball, Dre Ball, Dre Ball. I feel like Dre Ball, Dre Ball.